Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this video marketing guide for entrepreneurs and influencers, you're going to learn my top 12 tips for being successful with video marketing, timestamps below, along with some other helpful videos to be successful with your videos. So with that, let's go ahead, jump right in. The first 3 tips I have for you deal with different video marketing strategies. And the first and most powerful video marketing strategy you can start to apply to grow your influence or build your business is going to be authority content. And this is where you create videos where you're providing value to your ideal customer or ideal audience member. Now, don't worry, I have 3 specific types of videos you should start making right out of the gate, whether you're doing it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or anywhere else. So the very first type is going to be how-to content. And this is simply where you show potential customers exactly how to achieve something that they want. Now, very important with this one, if you're doing something on YouTube, it can be much longer than if you're doing something on, say, Facebook or Instagram, but we'll get to length later in this guide. So the second type we have are reviews. And this is simply where you review products or services your ideal customer might be considering. Now, of course, this only works if you're reviewing other products and services that don't directly relate to anything you sell or promote. So it doesn't look like you have a conflict of interest where you're saying, hey, my competitor's product really sucks, but mine is super awesome, right? So you don't want to have that inherent bias in the back of your mind, and you don't want your viewers to think that you might be being biased because you're reviewing a competitor product or service. Now, this last one is going to be a decision guide, and this is simply where you weigh the pros and cons of making a decision. An example that we've done on this channel to help new entrepreneurs and freelancers is we've done pros and cons videos of working on Fiverr and working on Upwork, or just striking it out on your own. So we weigh the pros and cons of using a platform versus going on your own, and that way they have all the information they need to make an informed decision. And of course, that will help build you up as an authority because you've actually been helpful. And that's the key to this type of content. We'll get to how to use this type of content to actually drive more subscribers, followers, or even sales in another tip when we get to calls to action. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now, the second tip I have for you is using something called the content frame. Now, I'll go through an example of how we use this for every single one of our videos, even our sales videos, but it's very important that when you're creating video, you create the video for who's going to watch it, not who's making it, right? So we need to frame our mind and our content in a way where we're making sure we're delivering value and speaking directly to our ideal customer or ideal audience member in the right way. So here's what the content frame looks like. You want to identify a big question, figure out what the desired result is, and then identify a roadblock or perceived gap. To illustrate this, let's go through the example of someone who's trying to grow a YouTube channel, and we are going to make a video to help them grow that YouTube channel. Well, the first thing we want to do is figure out what is the big question we need to answer with the video that we're making. So for this particular example, the big question we'd ask is, how do I get views to my videos? Well, that's a big question we need to ask with our piece of content, our video. Then second, we want to figure out what is their big desired result out of getting more views, because getting more views for the sake of getting more views, well, they probably want that because they ultimately want something else. Usually the big question that you're answering, even if it's a sales pitch, is going to be different than the ultimate benefit or result that someone's looking for. So in this particular instance, they want more views, but the end result that they're looking for is going to be get more subscribers and have a bigger channel. Finally, what do they think is getting in the way of that result? My channel is too small to compete, and I don't have a budget for better equipment or ads. And so that's all there is to it, to using something like this as a content frame. And so I highly recommend using this 3-step process to this 3-step process to go through every time that you create a video, to make sure that you're answering a question, you're actually speaking to your ideal customers or audience members' actual results and pain points that they're dealing with, and your videos will perform a lot better. Now, the third tip I have for you in the strategy section is going to be creating a product demo video. Now, this can work even if you're doing services. If you're just trying to be an influencer, this is going to be a little more difficult. You'll use it later on in the road. But essentially what you're doing here is you're going to make a video that briefly, like 10,000 foot view, describes what it's like working with you, right? So if you're an entrepreneur doing services, or if you have physical physical products, you do a physical product demo, but I'm gonna go through services because that's a little harder to go through. So what you would do is think of your service in terms of steps or phases, anywhere from 3 to 5. You wanna keep it sounding very simple, and you simply create a video that says, hey, this is what it looks like working with us. First, we're gonna hop on a strategy call, we're gonna understand your business, or we're going to understand your design needs, and then our designers are gonna make mock-ups, and then we'll come back and double check with you before the final results, or something to that effect. Obviously, you might not be a designer, so your process might look different, but there is a lot of anxiety and questions and objections in your ideal customer's mind before they're buying. So if you can show them, hey, this is kind of what the process looks like, they'll feel like the process is much more put together and that you know what you're doing, and you're probably going to be able to do a better job than another service provider who's not really explaining at all what the process looks like. It also allows you during the sales conversation to actually handle more objections because they're going to actually ask you questions and bring up things that they're concerned about in your process. And that will actually help you in the future when you do the video again, because you can always redo a video, right? When you do the video again, you'll actually be able to handle those objections, and over time, your product demo videos or service demo videos are going to become that much better. And before we move on to the next 3 tips, just remember that you need to keep this video at a 10,000 foot view. If you're putting together Gantt charts and timelines, that's way too much information. Don't get bogged down with the details, just the 10,000 foot view. Now, these next 3 tips are going to deal with how to actually be a little more relaxed or as natural as possible on camera, right? It's not really normal to sit in a room by yourself and just speak into a piece of equipment, but we'll do our best here. So the very first tip I have for you in these next ones, tip number 4, I'm getting my counts mixed up, is going to be keep it short. Whenever you're introducing your video, you want to keep it as short as humanly possible. And this is something I absolutely struggled with in the beginnings. In the beginning, there's an example of what not to do, right? So in the beginning, I would have this really big problem of just rambling or doing stuff like that at the beginning of the video because I was so nervous, or I would forget what I was supposed to be talking about. We'll get to that in a moment. And so I would get comments where people would say, hey, the video starts at 1 minute and 30 seconds or something crazy like that. Luckily, we're doing a little better now. So what you want to do in the beginning of your videos is answer 3 questions really quick and then move straight on to whatever the video is about. So the first one, you should address who the video is for, what they're going to get, and then what's the benefit of watching this video. So if we rewind to the beginning, you'll see that's exactly what we did. Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant, and in this video marketing guide for entrepreneurs and influencers, you're going to learn my top 12 tips for being successful with video marketing, timestamps below, along with some other helpful videos to be successful with your videos. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. And just like that, in less than 30 seconds, we were able to answer all 3 of those questions: who this video is for, what's it about, and what you'll ultimately get as a result of watching this video. So this next tip, tip number 5, is going to be having a clear call to action. So no matter what type of video you're making, you want to tell your viewers exactly what to do when the video is over, and sometimes you could even have calls to action during the video, but that's a little more advanced. So at the end of the video, you want to tell people exactly what to do. If you're doing some sort of authority type of content, you could tell them to hit the like button or subscribe or follow you or check out a link in the description. Then if you're doing a sales video, obviously the call to action would be click the buy now, download now, and access now, enroll now, whatever your call to action is for the video. And so you really just want to make sure that every time you make a video, you're asking your viewer to do something at the end. It doesn't have to be monumental. It doesn't have to be, hey, buy my stuff every single time, right? It can be something as simple as just hit the like button and subscribe, which is pretty much what I do with almost all of the videos here on this channel. And the only other thing you can consider doing with your calls to action is try and integrate calls to action to other content while you're talking. You'll see I'll do that later in this particular video. So for your calls to action, all you have to do is tell viewers specifically what to do, and that's as complicated as your calls to action need to be. Now, tip number 6 is going to be, it's just coffee. And this is going to be the hardest one on this list. We're halfway through. Go ahead and hit that like button if you're getting some value. Now, with it's just coffee, remember that people aren't expecting you to be super articulate. They're not expecting you never to make a mistake. I've made plenty in this video already. You just need to sit in front of the camera and pretend like you're talking to your ideal customer as if you're at a coffee shop, right? You don't need to be really formal. You don't need to be all rigid and frigid. You just need to relax and talk like you normally would, because the most powerful thing you can do with video, the reason video works so well is because you can be as close to in person as possible. People want to do business because of you, not because you can perfectly memorize a script. So just keep that in mind. Be as natural as possible, look directly into the camera, and just pretend like you're talking to an actual person, your actual ideal customer, just having a relaxed, normal conversation, no pressure at all. Now, these next 3 tips are going to deal with equipment, which seems to be a huge roadblock when it comes to making videos, but the good news is it doesn't have to be. So we're gonna start off with audio, because that is the most important piece of equipment in your recording setup. If your audio stinks, if people can't hear you, if it's too echoey or too groggy, they're just not gonna watch the video. You can get away with a lot of things and a lot of mess ups, a bunch of cuts and screw ups, but if people can't understand what you're saying, your videos are dead in the water. So the very first thing I recommend you pick up, irrespective of what your budget is a Rode microphone, lav microphone. It goes right here on your shirt, and that is as complex as your audio setup needs to be. You can see here on the slide, there are some other options that are significantly more expensive, but we started this channel using that microphone, and we did over 100 videos before we ever considered quote unquote upgrading to a microphone. And in fact, the microphone we upgraded to wound up being worse. So we went back to the Rode mic for another 100 videos and then switched to what we're using now, which is the Shure microphone you can see on this slide. Now, this next tip is going to be what to do for your second round of equipment purchasing, and that's going to be lighting. We'll get to the camera in a moment. It's actually one of the least important parts. But the next part is lighting. So with lighting, all you need is 2 softbox lights and you're good to go. Now, I understand you might be in a small studio like I am, or a confined space, and having those giant softbox lights will take up half of your square footage. I totally get it. So on this list, I've also included the N-Air 300, which is what I'm actually using to record right now because I'm currently traveling through Southeast Asia. And of course, softbox lights don't really fit in your carry-on luggage. So whatever you do for lighting, just remember that you don't need to spend more than $200 on your entire lighting setup. This third one we have here, the softbox kit, just adds an extra light that goes overhead. And if you had one of those, you wouldn't see all those ugly shadows to my left. So, or your right, my left, your right, right? So if you want to get rid of shadows like that, that's what the big overhead light that I don't have is. But right now I'm just using 3 of those YN300 Air lights, and they are doing more than a good enough job. So now let's get on to the next tip, and that's going to be your camera. This should be the absolute last piece of equipment you purchase. I mean, you could spend your money literally on anything and everything else in your business and in growing your audience before you pick up a fancy camera. And that's simply because if your cell phone was made in the past year, past 2 years, your video quality is good enough. You can still get by having 720p video on YouTube. You don't need 4K. That's just going to cause a whole lot of headaches. And even 1080p is okay not to have. What's most important is people can hear you. You've got that covered with the mic. Then you get rid of most of your shadows and you have somewhat even lighting. Well, this is a good enough example, right? Still got all the shadows over there. And then, and only then, should you worry about getting a fancy camera. This slide, of course, is showing you some of your camera options. You don't need a giant 3000 DSLR. I know you see a lot of tech YouTubers who every other week seem to have a new camera and new features. You don't need that. You really don't need that. And it's going to cause way more headaches than you want. Now, these final 3 tips are going to deal with being successful with video, specifically here on YouTube. So tip number 10 is going to be your runtime. How long should your videos be if you're creating authority content or even a product demo style content here on YouTube? Well, it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. That's the ideal length for a video here on YouTube because you need to rack up something called watch time. The YouTube algorithm cares about pretty much 2 things. Number 1, what's your click-through rate of your thumbnail, which is totally totally different video. And then number 2 is going to be the average watch time. That is, how many minutes or hours is your video getting? And it's easier to get a longer watch time with a longer video. So you're going to want to shoot for the 10 to 15 minute mark. You don't have to do an hour-long tutorial every other week, right? Most YouTubers have their videos anywhere between 10 and 20, and 30 minutes is pretty much considered a long video at this point. That of course might change in the future. Now this next one is going to be super simple, but almost nobody does it in the beginning, and that is just hit reply. So YouTube is still a social platform, which means when people comment, you should reply to them. It's going to signal positively to the algorithm, and it's going to help you build relationships with potential customers and audience members, because a lot of new YouTubers just don't seem to bother taking the time to reply. I understand it takes a really long time. It can take a really long time. It takes me over 2.5 hours as of the recording of this video every single week, hitting reply to every single comment that we get. But that's part of growing an audience and being successful here on YouTube. It's not supposed to be just a one-way conversation. Now, last and certainly not least is going to be how to accelerate the growth of your channel, or how to get more eyeballs to your sales demo video or product demo video that's hopefully making sales, helping to make sales for you. And that is going to be using YouTube discovery ads. Now, I'll link up in the cards in the description to a video that walks you through exactly what the heck that diagram actually means and how to set up your ads properly. Re-uploading your videos, never run discovery ads or any type of advertising to a video you want to perform organically. I'll give you that tip right now. And then of course it will actually walk through how to set up the campaign, how to do it on less than $5 a day, and of course the targeting options and how to test to figure out how to improve your campaigns. And so that does it for the 12 tips for being more successful with your video marketing. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dive marketing guides just like this one, and until the next, keep building the business you love.